The first thing I'm going to say is you're not selling your product, you're selling a decision. When you understand that you're selling decisions, you understand that you need to connect with human beings, understand their perception of value, and then sell against that. Because, quoting Robin's six needs, certainty and uncertainty are what I use to actually create disruption and sell. I create uncertainty, i.e., change, by providing certainty of working with me. So if I'm selling, and I've just taken a call just a moment ago from a major hardware company who said MedPic's failed. I said, it hasn't failed, implementation's failed. And then that is an immediate uncertain statement. And guess who gives them certainty?
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have a special guest, Julian reading. Julian, you have quite a comprehensive and impressive background. So,
The picture back there, you mean? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, actually, up, it's not as it seems. And if I can, I'm going to take one moment to tell you the story, if that's okay.
yes, please do.
So I remember I was talking at an event and I saw people collecting in the corner of a room, and I asked them what it was for, and it was for this a charity called Chestnut Tree House, and it was only a couple of miles away from where I lived, and it was a children's hospice. Now in the UK, a children's hospice, they specialise in end of life care for 6 months to 16 years, and I went to visit the place, and I'll be honest with you. It hit me harder than anything it has in my life. So I called up every single Ferrari owner I knew in the country and I said, we're getting down and we're taking the kids out for a most amazing day. And this photo was taken just a minute after about what I'm going to tell you. Now, in this car next to me is a little 6-year-old boy called Ben. And just before it was, just before this picture was taken, his mum came to me and said, can I put your sister in the car? I said, yeah, of course. She said, we want to create a fantastic memory book today. Ben loves Ferraris. He loves his sister. But unfortunately, we're going to lose her next week. She's going to die. And she told it me like that. And I just took a deep breath out and I literally couldn't believe it. And I drove out and this picture was taken. And this picture's here not for the reason of the material projection that most people think it is. It's here. So if ever I've got stress, I turn around, I look at my picture, and I'm reminded I'm the luckiest man in the world because I can cuddle my children at any time. And I don't have problems, I have opportunities. So that's the story behind the background. But thank you for asking.
Wow, it's quite an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. So, I came across your episode on the Sales Leadership Show with Will Barron, the deal inspection one. The story about the receptionist being the deciding influence in a 9-person buying committee generally stopped me. How often does something like that actually happen in the enterprise deals?
It's extraordinary how many times that has happened. And that's the case of rank versus influence. We're going to see it a lot more in this global climate as well, Art. The job as a salesperson is to understand their coverage strategy whenever they go into an account. Now, for me, I've always looked for the influencers because I've been a managing director of a business myself, a big business. I run services, a training team, and I knew the people in my team that I relied on. And one of them was Angela, that was my PA. I literally used to make sure she met everyone, and she had a better eye than me for trusting. So there are always influencers in a business. So it's critical that you map your buying committee, but your influencers underneath it, because you never know who is carrying that weight of opinion and who people respect. The particular deal was Abbey National years ago, and it was a story, and Julie's still a friend to today. But it was extraordinary how she had more of a voice than the whole team.
Wow. Okay. You spent nearly 3 decades inside multinational companies before funding sales journey. What did you see happening to sales teams in those organizations that made you think, someone needs to fix this properly?
Well, I was always slightly hamstrung by politics about what I could do, what I couldn't do. And typically, the people who were working above me were not salespeople. They'd never sold in their lives, yet they're dictating a strategy. And I saw a huge weakness in following process. I saw a huge weakness in the lack of focus on discovery and more the rise of the reporting manager. And I found actually it was more of a personal thing for me, Art. It was that I didn't feel free. And that once I freed myself up from the confines of corporate, my creativity started more than it ever had. And I was able to explain myself more without really worrying about, what was going to happen here, there, and everywhere, because sales is a very brutal contact sport. And I'm I'm passionate about helping people anyway. That's my ikigai, if you know what ikigai is. And this is my thing. And I wanted to help more people than just the ones doing boot camp and coaching. And I thought there's like a lot of people. So I'd started up my own free of charge coaching business where I would help tech founders. And on a Saturday, they called in to an hour-long workshop, and I would just talk about the basis of actually building a business and getting the sales team ready, what to invest in, how to hire, how to implement a CRM, all the basics that I knew that typically tech founders that are more technical people didn't know, and help them get ready for acquisition. And I really enjoyed that. So I wanted to make it my profession. And I just decided one day this is what I was going to do. And I've never looked back from there.
Epic. That's a pretty awesome trigger to step in your own light. So MedPick is widely known, but widely misapplied. What's the most common way enterprise sales teams butcher it? And what does it look like when it's done properly?
Well, okay. So the first thing I see is that it's a tool that's used to beat up salespeople. So people don't use the tool correctly because they're worried what information comes in and what they're going to be beaten up on. Secondly, after it's trained, so I can be there 2 days or a week, but the coaching is the critical element, the follow up to it, being able to understand what next best selling action is. Because where MedPick, I think, is far superior than any methodology art, is that it shows you what's missing. It helps you retrieve that missing information and set strategy on a regular basis. Because the third failing I see is that people think they've got to complete a med pick. Your med pick's never complete. It's constantly being looked at on a weekly basis and evolved. And shameless plug here, are you ready? I've actually built a new tool called Sales Commander that acts as your personal coach in MedPick and actually prescribes, even on the most basic information, what your next best selling action is. Did you get that shameless plug there, mate?
Yes, but does it do live suggestions during a call, for example?
Yes, the next release is going to be. So it can be on that. I'm not trying to be all things to all people. What I've done, and if I can, I think this is a really important point, Art, and I just want to touch on this for a second. For me, CRM has never delivered, right? Controversial statement number one. A number of people listen to this and go, well, what do you mean? Well, I'm a salesperson and have been, and I would put minimal information into the CRM. And in fact, one of my last companies spent $6.2 million with a massive consulting company. And this consultancy company came in and they looked at the business and they said, you're not selling enough because you're too expensive. Interesting. So they actually got funding and they reduced their product, tried to push it in the market, but sales didn't go up. And you know the reason? Is that they took the data off Salesforce, that 62% of deals were lost on price. But the only way as a salesperson you could close a deal and not have a loss review was click lost on price. So irrespective of how you lost it, they were just clicking what was set up in Salesforce. So Salesforce produced the data, but the data was incorrect coming out. So you can't actually do anything with it. And when I mentioned that in the board meeting, there was a silence that went round the room, realizing that maybe those millions could have been spent better elsewhere. But it's as simple as that. And people don't use Salesforce because they see it as admin. They see it as a process, as a task. What I've designed, I'm calling it anti CRM as a smile more than anything else. Every time you put something in, it gives you something back. So you put in the details of your deal, it's going to tell you what you're doing right. It's going to tell you what you're doing wrong. It's going to do a competitive analysis. It's going to give you a 7 and 30-day plan. It's going to set out your next meetings. It's going to coach you on your next meetings. You can do live role play with it. It shows you how to hit your target. So you've got a target planner, you put your number in and it shows you all the activities to hit your targets. Phenomenal what it does. It's got this incredible account planning tool that actually trawls the accounts for you that you've been given, identifies all the key people to speak to, builds talk tracks for you to actually use. Because these are all the things that a sales leader won't coach. Because that's the execution and operation of MedPick is in all that detail and all the things that are happening and coaching and being able to understand what a metric is and how to coach it. That's why I built a tool that is a virtual me, as someone said the other day. But I'm trying to embrace AI to be a business partner for sales. So I'm calling it satellite navigation for sales. It gives you turn by turn instruction on every part of the deal. Deals are won and lost in discovery. Discovery is the most critical thing. So my tool really focuses on where you're going to win. And I can't wait for people to try it because I want to change the world and I want our profession to be a practice because there's a lot of salespeople at the moment that are failing, economic climate and everything. But I see the failure more in that first line manager. Everywhere I work, and I work in some of the top tech companies in the world, and it's everywhere. There is a failure in divisions of the first line manager, inability to coach, inability to understand how to win, and inability how to actually prescribe next best selling action.
We should definitely talk about this after the call as well.
I mean, every question you get is going to get a long answer, mate. So let's just get ready for that.
No problem. But I mean, just for myself too, I want to get more information on this. So you hold a master's in behavioral science and you're NLP certified.
Yeah.
How much of closing high value enterprise deals is actually sales technique and how much is it actually applied psychology?
For me, the psychology is the most important thing. Techniques and practices and processes can absolutely be trained and actually implemented, but understanding human beings, it's great. Yeah, Simon Sinek. I love Simon Sinek. I mean, what a guy! And he asks, "What do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it?" And that's a fundamental thing with anything in sales is understanding the why. Because the first paradigm shift. So, you and me are working together, and I'm giving you coaching. The first thing I'm going to say is you're not selling your product, you're selling a decision. And I actually teach people how the brain makes the decision, covered in my third book, Selling with Psychology, available for the bargain price of $15 on lulu.com. There was another shameless plug. But when you understand that you're selling decisions, you understand that you need to connect with human beings, understand their perception of value, and then sell against that. Because, quoting Robbins' six needs, certainty and uncertainty are what I use to actually create disruption and sell. I create uncertainty, i.e., change, by providing certainty of working with me. So if I'm selling, and I've just taken a call just a moment ago from a major hardware company who said MedPic's failed. I said, it hasn't failed, your implementation's failed. And then that is an immediate uncertain statement. And guess who gives them certainty? So it's incredibly psychological, because in my training, I get you to tell me orange kangaroo in Denmark by asking you a few questions. So you need to know the outcome of everything. Preparation is absolutely key. So psychologically understanding how you're going to be in the meeting, what questions you're going to ask, how you're going to engage, how you're going to get value, and what are the key outcomes that you want to achieve for the person sat across the table. Because here's the major mistake a lot of salespeople make. They think the meeting's about them. It's not. It's about the person across the table. As human beings sat there, your job is to connect, understand, and prove value. In fact, there was a survey done a couple of years ago, and the two biggest things that buyers said were understand me and understand my company, in that order. And especially now when we just talked about AI, jobs are at threat. The more that you can understand that person and their motivations, then you win. And I've got one question I can share it with you. It's the best sales question you're ever going to ask. Do you want to hear it?
I definitely do. What is it?
So if I'm working with a company, I will sit with the person and I will say, I'm fascinated by everything and how things work around here. So please tell me about the last successful project. Now, that is one of the most powerful psychological sales questions you're ever going to ask for two factors. First of all, have you noticed how Hollywood, the majority of movies are prequels, sequels, and remakes? Did you see Top Gun Maverick? Did you see
No,
it?
I haven't seen that one.
Well, the most people who went to see it did not think Tom Cruise was going to die in the first 5 minutes. They didn't think the Russians were going to take over America. We kind of know what's happened. How many times have you seen Friends in your life, the TV series?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask why you do that. It's because you want certainty. And this is a major human drive because even though you know what's going to happen, you want to repeat that feeling, that emotion. And we can take that psychology into sales. So by asking, tell me about the last successful project, you're getting that person's perception of what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. Because they're going to tell you what's good about it and why it worked. And all you do is create the sequel from there. It's a fascinating use of psychology, but what it does is get to that person's, their own personal representation of value. And that's what you buy. We are value based buyers. So as long as it's meeting what structure and we approve, because all I'm doing then is going to mirror it back to you. And remember, we gravitate as human beings to people that we are like and what we can connect with. We're always looking to connect. So that's where it's incredibly valuable as a question. And I urge anyone listening to use that.
Noted. I should send notes, record notes from this. This is some good material. Thank you. So your speed methodology is designed to reduce deal cycle time. What are the structural reasons enterprise deals slip, and what does speed actually change about how a team manages a deal from the meeting to close?
What it does is drive a behavior of activity of next best selling action. So it stands for situation, position, pain, explore, execute, and date. Now, I sit in on reviews all the time, Art, and they typically go, hey, so Steve, is that deal coming in next month? Yeah, it's really good. The people there have lined it up and it's all going to happen. Definitely happen in this quarter. Yeah, definitely going to happen this quarter. Great. Next. Tells you nothing. That is a typical forecast call. Whereas what speed does is get you to understand the situation. So where are we in the deal cycle? If it's 90 days, 180 days, what is our situation? Where are we? Because we can then start to assess the maturity of the coaching we're going to give. Understanding the position and pain. So what position is the customer in? Are they ready to spend? Are they in demo? What? And what pain are they feeling? Can the salesperson articulate the pain? Because they can't, no pain, no deal. And then what we do is explore the medic or the med pick. So we explore, we look at all the key gaps. So it actually drives purpose in the sales manager to review the activities in the medpic and start thinking about how they're going to coach and drive value. And then what we do is execute. So we structure out our activities on a 7 and 30 day plan. And then we put a date by each one. So then medpic lives, and this methodology starts to roll up in what is a date based selling activity, all automated in my new Sales Commander tool that I might have mentioned earlier in case you missed it. But, but this is absolutely key art to drive because if I said to you, and I say this with a smile, what are your two certainties in life? Death and taxes?
Yes, death and taxes. Exactly. I was about to say, sorry, I was a little bit slower, but you got it right. Exactly. That's it. That's it.
Those, let me hit you with a different one. Here's our certainties, our target and number of days to hit it. We have
Okay.
circa 240 sales days in a year. So we have a plan and we execute against it. And guess what? Every one of those days is a date. So every activity should be date driven. And that's how you start coaching and actually driving down your deal cycle time. Now, deal cycle time is a killer for most businesses. Slippage happens because the coaching hasn't happened at the start. Slippage happens because of inaccurate data being recorded on Salesforce. Slippage happens because of lack of control of the pipeline, understanding what your coverage strategy is, how real a deal is, and having a proper inspection process. Because the reality is that typically the forecast is third hand, passed up by a couple of managers to someone in sales ops that prepares a forecast and says we're going to hit this number. But we don't see the activities behind it. The activities make the deal, not the number. So once again, this is one of the reasons I developed Sales Commander because it starts to put more accuracy in what that number is because you can actually look at the activities and what the 7 and 30 day plan is.
Fascinating. And I love the quote about two certainties in life. Well, there are two more according to this call. So you've said rank versus influence is massively underappreciated in enterprise selling. But walk me through how a salesperson should be mapping that in a live deal. Like, what does that actually look like in practice?
Oh, 100%. So when I ask, tell me about the last successful project, there's a couple of questions I ask underneath that. I'm going to keep a couple secret just in case someone wants to engage me after this. Okay. So I've got to keep my IP to myself. But I say, what role did you play and who did you work with? You see, especially when you're working in the technology world, there are people in every single over the, geez, I've been selling for 34 years now. That went quick, didn't it? There's always someone that is constantly put on the projects because they're reliable and they're the ones that go to the board. They're the ones that have political power. They're the ones that whenever big projects comes, it goes to that team, it goes to that person. So it's critical to see partisans and allies, who works with who. So this is that's why you ask that question is who did you work with? Because it's critical to see what access they've got and if they're involved in all the meetings. Remember, a lot of people want to make themselves more important than they are when they first meet someone. And there's always a danger in that. So by asking that question, you understand who they work with. And if they've got access to other people across the business and regular access, they're influential because they're meeting people from another business. So in the business itself, the company. So it's important to map that. And also you look for things like executive access. Who do people rely on? It's always great to build a champion and ask about, what's the politics here? It's a very open question that everyone should ask, tell me about the politics in the company, because you need to understand that because quite often you'll be selling against it as well. So your smart salesperson always understands that level of detail. So you've got in your decision process of MedPick, you've got all your people, but you're looking at what levels of influence they've got, what your coverage strategy should be, what access they've got to senior people, and what roles they play on projects. That makes sense, mate.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. Let's see here. Enterprise buying has changed. So more stakeholders, longer cycles, more reconversion. What's the single biggest shift you've had to build into your training in the last 3 years that wasn't needed 5 years ago?
More the rise of finance in controlling things. It's a lot easier. Well, post COVID, we had a bit of a climb, then a drop, and you see everything that's happening at the moment. In every deal I'm working on, there's someone in finance I'm talking to now. You didn't see that before. So the role of the budget holder has changed, or the person that can actually authorize. I'm seeing more management accountants in deals that are bigger deals that I'm working myself. So, if I'm selling, for example, some training or something, I may be speaking to people in sales enablement, but they'll have a management accountant that works with that division, and they're the person that they hold the purse strings. They can sign the money. So I just did a course for one of my companies this morning, and I was talking about how to talk to the finance teams because it's critically important that you understand how something's going to be budgeted for. And I would say the shift you've got to be more of a businessman. And what I've seen fail is your feature function salesperson, the ones that think they can do death by demo, and it's not working. A lot of the tools are the same now, and especially what you can do with AI. You can build a lot yourself in minutes, can't you? So the feature function is almost a byproduct. It's about the great salespeople in enterprise selling are selling outcomes, trust, and decisions. The poor ones are going into demo world, proof of concept, pilots, and everything because that's all they know. So the people that are doing well are the ones that are understanding what it means to the business. And then and lots of people will say, well, duh, that's something that we know, but executed, it's not. I still see 1, 2 people involved in. I was reviewing a deal this morning with a customer, 4.2 million, had 3 points of contact: IT manager, IT director, and procurement, and they lost the deal
Why?
because they didn't understand that there was a merger of 2 divisions within the business, and that IT was going to be moving to somewhere else. Everyone in IT knew, and they told the person in the competition, but not told them. And they were actually blaming that as the reason they lost.
Wow.
Unbelievable, right?
There's a lot. There's a lot to actually take in from all those sales calls. It might be a perfect pitch deck and a perfect presentation, but unless you're missing some underlying detail, eh,
It is. I mean, this is why selling is a complex art, and a lot of what I teach is more the execution than the theory. I every story that I tell to a customer is in a structure of pain, goal, solution, value, because that's how our brains think. We've been conditioned by Hollywood and the media world to actually think like that as well. So you're looking to actually bring a social narrative into a business situation. I see so many presentations art where the company opens up with how many customers they've sold to. No one cares. No one cares. What they care about is their own business. I've got a unique 6 steps to close. And the first screen I put up when I'm presenting to a team of C-level is the people I've talked to with pictures against the name and quotes against each and every one of what I've found. Why? Because they all lean in and see their own people. And the validity of the message isn't coming from me. I'm not telling them what's wrong with their business. I'm actually presenting all the insights that I've found out from their whole team. And the reason being for this is that with that, there's obviously a trust with their own team. So they calculate for themselves that they need to change and that I'm the right person to do it because I'm presenting the information. So once again, any people listening to this, they want to get hold of me. I've got this very unique 6 steps to close. This closed me a deal for 82 million, by the way. That was my biggest ever deal. And it was using this structure. And the guy come out and said, you nailed it. Because from the first second we were all listening, your competition was in here before and we fell asleep for the first half hour because they were doing the talk of the company and who they sold to and how wonderful they were. I focus absolutely. My customer is the most important person. Don't need to talk about other people, talk about them.
awesome. That's what I can say.
World according to Julian, mate. There's 5 books on it, by the way.
I'll need to look into this. I'll load them up in my queue. So AI is starting to touch every part of the sales process, like prospecting, qualifications, pipeline management. Where do you see it genuinely helping enterprise sales teams, and where is it creating new problems?
Well, I'm obviously going to say with my business, it is creating the world class sales coach sat with you and giving you turn by turn directions. I love AI is automating a lot of the background research and everything because I can't tell you, honestly, you probably heard a change in tonality in my voice, how many salespeople I have to coach on preparing for a meeting. I've got pages of Note for our podcast today. I sat down and prepped everything about what you could be asking me. So when I turn up, get the best version of me. I went out 3 weeks ago now with one of my main customers with a sales guy that isn't doing well. And I like to try and help and turn people around. And I'm sat in the back of the car. He picks up his sales engineer, and the sales engineer says, "Who are we seeing?" And the guy went, "Oh, we're seeing this, and we've got to do this, this, and this." Are you guys seriously briefing 30 minutes before a meeting? Unbelievable. But that is the sloppiness that I've seen in a lot of selling. Building in that process. What AI is going to do is going to eradicate the dependency on the poor salesperson because all the information is going to be there. And then the sales leaders can start inspecting if they're using the information, which is critical. We were talking about AI is only as good as the holder, right? All I'm doing is removing any of those excuses. So let's just say you've got a deal and you're going against IBM and Accenture. You're going to have a strategy with my tool that looks at IBM and Accenture, looks what they're going to say, gives you a counter talk strategy, gives you your strengths, your weaknesses, gives you your battle tactics. So what are going to be the mines that you're going to plant that's going to trip up the other salesperson? What is the research? What's the latest thing going on in each of their companies? What are their products? What are they selling? What will they be positioned to your customer? Because that salespeople don't do it. But if you do it, you 100% know a lot more and you massively up your chances to win the deal. So I see AI built working as that coach all the time, retrieving all that information and taking what is a average salesperson and giving them all the tools to be great, which I think is the big gap. Not only on salespeople, as I said before, this is on leadership, but actually having that process as a proven process. So all of a sudden, they've got an absolute strategy to execute against.
Fascinating. Thank you. So you're vocal about attrition being one of the biggest unaddressed killers of sales performance. Is that getting worse? And what are the best CROs you work with doing differently to hold their teams together?
The best CROs are the ones that are leading from the front and taking accountability, and not ones that are just doing speaking that I'm seeing at the moment. Attrition typically is more the fault of the manager than the salesperson. I posted about this on LinkedIn the other day, Art, because someone posted about, being a salesperson and all these things and everything. And I said, well, you look at the leadership. Leadership is if salespeople are failing, that's on the leaders. And quite often they wash their hands with people. They will pocket them in an area that of failure. I see it all the time, and I'm always amazed by it because the sales manager's got a lot higher sales target than the salesperson. So they typically got 10 people, so it's 10 times the target of one person. What they don't do is structure their so I use a 20-60-20 principle. 20% of my superstars, I've got to feed them. 60% the people who need my coaching. So I'm going to spend more time with them looking at their deals. And 20%, unfortunately, are going to be on performance all the time. Now, your job is to make that really 30, 50, 20. Start bleeding people up all the time. But you always should have the right to remove poor performance because it's always going to be. But have a structure that you're executing on. I haven't met many sales managers that have a structure for managing their team like that. It's more reactive. So I think attrition is done because that lack of leadership is forcing people to leave as well. There's a lot of people who are choosing to leave companies because the leadership isn't there, the personal development isn't there. So it's a fascinating debate. Think what we can do with AI. I'm not going to talk about my tool again, but I think what we can do with AI, with really equipping salespeople a lot better, will start to really reduce attrition. Because I've got 5 major companies using it in pilot at the moment, just as it's the test version, and they've had dramatic spikes in sales, dramatic, just within a short period of time. Because one of the sales leaders at the fourth biggest software company in the world that's using it said, for the first time ever, I feel like I can do my job. All the base level coaching has all been automated. And I'm able just to really look at the numbers and help instruct and do that polish. And I love that.
Amazing. Sales journey is bespoke by design. Every program tailored.
Mm.
What does that mean practically in terms of how you scope and build an engagement with the CRO versus VP of sales?
Well, they typically have different things. I mean, the CRO will be ultimately focused on number. The VP is more concerned with the performance and activities of their team. Now, every single course obviously has the base core components of MedPick because it's what I teach. But I also have my own methodology called Prism that I teach. I also know TAS and Challenger. I like MedPick because of the way it can actually be utilized as a growth engine and really help salespeople if utilized properly. But I understand. So I want to give the people that listen to this another one of my tips that is game changing. If we were meeting for the first time, Art, and let's just say you're the chief revenue officer of ABZ sales company or whatever, I would say to you, just as we're closing the meeting, I would say, I had the most wonderful time talking to you today. I need to just explain to you how we work and what happens next. I work with you to identify the key people in your business who we need to talk to understand the insights from every single angle of what they want to achieve. And then I'll put together a bespoke proposal and present it back to you within 3 weeks so as we can both review and make sure that the content I'm going to demonstrate and develop will be totally in line with what you're thinking. How does that sound? It's called setting out your terms of business. You might have guessed I've done that quite a few times with how easily that come out. But I tailor that message for every single company that I do because what it does immediately gets you a quick executive access. If you're working with 5 directors, you can send them an email and say, I need to meet Julie. You need to meet Julian. Are you free next week? I can't call them, email them. It's going to take me hundreds of times to get hold of them. So I've already dramatically shortened my sales cycle. I've got better insights. So I know what the business needs to achieve, thinking outcomes. And the content I will put together will provide insights for both the CRO and the VP of sales in terms of the behavioral objectives we need to achieve by team, by region, and by outcome. So does that make sense, mate?
Perfectly. That makes perfect sense. I'll review the transcript again to make sure I actually saw those. What's working really well for sales journey right now, and where is the traction?
So sales journey right now, I've just got a couple of customers because I've been focusing on building the new companies. My brand is doing the deal inspection. So I'm good at understanding what needs to be done next. I think it's one of my only skills, by the way. I'm not sure I can do much else, but it's proved lucrative. But so I do a lot of deal inspection, a lot of coaching. I do a lot of behavioral based coaching for leaders. So, helping them understand more of the why and building strategies for businesses as well, because their business is so much, it's very emotional at the moment in terms of how things are being managed. I haven't had to do outbound campaigns in years. All my work is by reference, which I'm super proud of, by the way. I'm not saying that as an arrogant statement. I'm super proud of it because I think if your reputation precedes you, you're achieving what you wanted the business to do, which means I want more salespeople selling more and hitting their targets. In fact, just in the corner of my world headquarters over here, I've got a millionaires wall of people who have sort of earned over 1 million in a year off the back of my coaching. Super proud of that, mate. Seriously, because I celebrate other people's success, as we all should. But what's working really well for me is really helping to, and I'm trying to, and I know much like you are, I'm trying to pour some light on potential uses of how companies are going to really efficiently use AI to drive outcome based results. I see a lot of automating of processes and think, so what? I can do a purchase order 5 minutes quicker than I could before. So what? I don't care. But I love what we're doing in AI that is providing more value to customers and helping equip salespeople with better information. And the more information salespeople have got, the better decisions customers can make. And I really want to change the world on that level. So I've been talking about it a lot. I do have two other things as well. So I work for my charity, which is Chestnut Tree House. I do a lot of fundraising for them, which I'm super passionate about. And I have a charity that helps ex-Marines in your part of the world who've got PTSD. I help them get back on their feet and get to work. So my time is split a lot, but what's working well for me is that the business is still going. I can uh, I can still pay my bills, and I'm still managing to help a lot of people, which is the key thing.
That's amazing, especially the two charities. That's quite amazing. You must feel amazing actually to actually help people, like a lot of people, in many different locations. So we discussed where you had traction, and where is the friction if you have friction somewhere in your business?
There's always friction. There is always a defense to change. People don't want change. They're asked for it, but they don't want it. I'd like change, but please don't affect anything I do. The friction is quite funny. We've talked about psychology a bit. One of the key frictions I have is the moment I walk into a room and I'm going to deliver a lecture, a coaching session, I know that half of the people there don't want to listen because they're closed off to it. And they're sitting there thinking, what are you going to tell us? I see it in their behavioral and you can tell by body language and everything. So guess what I start off with? I can't teach anyone how to sell. That's my opening statement. And the reason for doing that is a little bit reverse psychology.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You don't want it. You definitely don't want this.
I can't teach.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're the experts. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that I've done.
Yep.
And it's this whole thing is like if I tell you not to think of a banana, you think of a banana.
Don't
So
think of the big elephants. Right?
yeah, yeah. And so you handle. There's always that as friction. And in fact, I was in Dallas just about a year and a half ago now, and I had a chap come up to me. I'd always wanted to meet him, by the way, and he said, "Julian, lovely you're here, but you can't teach me anything about sales. I'm an expert." I said, "Wow, I've always wanted to meet you. This is incredible." He said, "I'm going to help you teach the course." I said, "You're good. Have a seat." So there is this preconception in sales that people almost, it's like an esoteric community where, we hold the information, don't judge us, don't ask us. Because I argue micromanagement doesn't exist in sales. It's every other part. In sales, it's all about information. And, I know plenty of people that don't update CRM because that's their data that keeps their job and their contacts and everything like that. So it's a very, very esoteric world, I think, being in sales. And you always see pushback from there. But it's also the accountability for change. When I talk to leaders about you've got to review on a weekly basis, these are the things you've got to do. Or if I talk to salespeople about you've got to understand the politics, I get the same thing. That means I've got to do a lot more work. Yeah, you have. And so that's often a pushback. A lot of, we saw, if I talk about the industry for a minute, there's too many highly paid basic salespeople as a result of COVID. There's too many people that can live very comfortably on their base. One of my customers, first thing I do is look at expenses. Whenever I'm asked to look at a company, so how much the salespeople spend in expenses. An enterprise sales team with 8 people working major financial institutions had a spend in a whole quarter of $46.
Elaborate.
They weren't going anywhere. They're sitting at home. They're not making the effort to go and see their customer. They're comfortable where they are. They're comfortable on their money because the ones that truly want it are all over the place. They're out meeting, they're drumming up business. I'll come and see you. I'll make an excuse to see you because people buy from people. High performing salespeople have high performing expenses. It's just one of these traits. And when I'm running sales teams and what I have done in the past, setting my expenses budget is for me a mark of success. So I want each one of my sales guys spending $300 a week, a month, depending on what we're doing, going to see customers, talking to them. Because if you're not, your competition is. And I'm seeing deals lost through lack of visibility in a client. Because when I say to him how a guy lost a deal the other day, and I said, talk me through how many times you saw them, what the ratios was. He said, oh, I never saw them. I left that to the partner. Exactly. So I think this has been an epidemic. And, whenever I've run sales teams, I've made sure that basic was not enough to live. And I know it sounds very harsh, right? But you're there to sell and you make your money in commission. I never cared any job about what basic I had. I want to know what I'm going to earn on target because that's my job. That's your second certainty in life. Yeah. Yeah. You got to hit your target. And this is this brutal world of sales. A lot of people today have gone from hitting their target 160% to zero. Because March the 31st is a financial year end for a lot of companies. And today they've gone to zero. So they're back the same as everyone else. And you have to reset every year, and having that energy is hard. But you need the motivation. And I don't care who you are, you need the motivation of money to be in sales.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to be hungry for it and have a purpose to do it.
Where do you want to take sales journey in the next 6 to 12 months? More enterprise clients, more geography, building out the IP in any direction?
Great question. Well, so the consultancy side of things is just going to serve my 2 customers that I've been working with for years that I love because I want to see them through to success. But the main business is building 3 new ones out. The first one is Sales Commander that I've been talking about today. I want to get my application in the hands of as many salespeople as I can because it transforms their life and it makes them a world-class salesperson overnight. I'll show you after this art and you'll see. I'm also launching a business called Prism Selling. This is targeted at founders of tech companies, people who've got 25 people maximum in their business. Because I show them how to create a revenue engine. I show them how to actually build sales processes and how to build a strategy to execute on, but also tied to a 6-year or 5-year plan to actually sell the business. So I talk to them about how to structure their business for investors, for funding, for sales. So I've got a series of videos that actually help and instruct on this because it's a missing gap with most tech people. They have a great idea, they just don't know how to monetize it. And with that is some applications that I built to actually process and automate the sales. So it's a smaller, light version of Sales Commander that comes with Prism Selling. And there's Prism Selling Academy that's going to be available to every salesperson around the world. It's going to cost $10 a month. You get access to me, my video, and 2 applications: Prism Selling to how to sell, and a negotiation planner for how to close. So those 2 apps, it's $10 a month. I'm not making any money on that, but I want to get it in many people's hands as possible because only when you see what AI can do and the tools that I've developed, you start realizing that sales is going to be an easier job and you can do more and you can earn more. And if you can earn more, you can do more for your family, your friends, and that. And that always should be purpose driven.
Let's stay after the call because I want to talk up a couple of things. All right. So one of the couple of questions that I have, like, final questions. If you had a magic wand and could fix just one thing inside the sales journey right now that's slowing the mission down, what would that be?
What a great question. That I could reach more people easier. That's my biggest challenge. There is a better way for selling. There's better ways for running sales businesses. If we're still running sales businesses like it was 2010, it's not. The world's changed massively. And I'd like to communicate my message to more people because I've had this process for years that wins me business, and everyone who adopts it starts selling a lot more. And it's bloody hard doing what we do, mate, because you work in a failure profession. You're going to lose more than you win, which is an absolute fact. And you've got to keep resetting every day. You've got to be really mentally strong. But I want to talk to more people about what I can do. I would love, to have some sort of forum where I could show people, what Sales Commander does and how it's going to help you and how it's going to give you a massive advantage against the competition. So that would be the magic one thing that I'd be able to connect with lots and lots of people that would listen. The whole world's full of. I get about 80 messages a day that are all AI driven with M dashes in and Julian, we love what you're doing at Sales Journey. And How would you like to lease a car? Very quickly, if you ever see me LinkedIn, I do it with my dogs, with Pippa that runs Southern operations and Margaret that runs Northern. One's a French bulldog, one's an English bulldog. Margaret runs Northern, being English. And because I had a guy call me, he said, Julian, we love what you do at Sales Journey. Great, thank you. He said, but talking to the team and they're saying that you're being beaten up on lease rates at the moment. Do you want me to give you a quote for some new cars? We've got great deals going on at the moment on BMWs and Mercedes. I said, great. Who did you talk to? He went, I can't remember the person's name. I said, was it Pippa or was it Margaret? He said, oh, it was Pippa we spoke to. I said, that's great. She's a French bulldog. Once again, no research of a salesperson, which is shocking.
Wow. Chat. I love it. All right, let's do a closing, but that's the after the call. So, Julian, this has been a fantastic, I would say brilliant and fantastic conversation. The behavioral science overlay on MedTech is genuinely a different level from anything else in the space. And the speed methodology angles something a lot of CROs need to hear. So I'll send over a summary, and once we compile the full podcast series, this one will land well with any sales leaders trying to reduce slippage and drive forecast accuracy.
Awesome. Yeah. And, anyone who's listening to this can reach out to me on LinkedIn or julian.redding, READING, at salesjourney.co.uk. I'm happy to jump on a call, help anyone. Tell me a problem, I'll give you a solution. Remember, we don't have problems, we have opportunities.
Amazing. Thank you.